Hey, what is up, guys? Today I'm going to be telling you a story that sounds straight out of a movie, but it's 100% real. Okay, so I never thought Minecraft would be the reason I ended up with my girlfriend, but here we are. But before we get into the story, welcome to my Minecraft survival series, where instead of giving you the usual gameplay commentary, I'll be rambling about random stuff like my life, hobbies, future games, favorite games, and whatever else comes to mind, all while casually building up a brand new survival world in the background. So, as you guys can see, we're going after this shipwreck here, and there'll be all sorts of stuff going on in the background. I'm hoping to throw in a few kind of random kind of Easter eggs here and there, but we'll see as we go on. But if you guys have any topics you want me to cover or ideas for the world, you guys can drop them down in the comment section below. But let's kick things off with this story. Let me take y'all way back, middle school. I was like, 12 or 13? Super into Minecraft. Barely knew how to talk to girls and just discovered how cool Redstone was. So, finding myself spending my free time playing survival games on ProMC Games. If you know, you know. That was the server to play survival games on. But on that server, I was meeting people similar to my age who loved the game that I loved. And that's where I met Catie. Now, I didn't just meet Catie randomly. We actually met through a mutual friend, which she had and I met through ProMC. But won't go into too much about that friend. All you need to know is she was a bit of a drama queen in this little chaotic friend group we had, but that's how we got introduced to each other. So, we were all just a bunch of kids vibing online, playing some Minecraft, sharing music on Plug DJ. Yeah, if you know that one too, that's a good one as well. Please, if you're out there, bring back Plug DJ. That was the best thing ever. But anyways, and we were roasting each other every day, and we still do. But we were just a bunch of kids vibing online, playing some Minecraft, and doing our thing. So, just doing that every day. Me and Catie were talking all the time, and I actually introduced her to a band, 21 Pilots, who she had never heard of. And I was like, yo, you have to hear this band. And the only reason I knew about the band was from another mutual friend who used to preach about their music like it was the best thing since sliced bread. Every conversation had the 21 Pilots in it, which to this day I still listen to. But I digress. Anyways, Minecraft was where me and Catie really clicked. It was that one game where we always would play it, and we would always play on ProMC Games. That was kind of our main thing. However, after playing enough on ProMC Games, we ended up playing together on a SMP server or survival multiplayer server. And if anybody's a longtime fan of the channel, you know I like a good SMP. But it was kind of scuffed, but it had that kind of weird charm to it, and we really spent hours just building, talking, messing around, the usual things middle schoolers did when they were playing Minecraft. And honestly, I don't know what happened during that time, but we both kind of caught feelings, but it wasn't clear kind of who caught feelings first or what to do with those feelings, It just kind of grew. But with us being young enough to not understand like how to act on said feelings, we just kind of winged it and went with it. But what happened in the end was, at the end of middle school, I decided to switch from Minecraft to playing a lot of GTA 5 online. And she stuck with that Minecraft a little bit longer, and that's when we kind of started losing touch. So we're looking at like end of middle school being like 2015, 2016-ish, and that's when I went from Minecraft to GTA 5. So we're now moving from 2016, 2015 to about 2020, give or take. This would be about the June of 2020. So this is 4 years after middle school. We're kind of getting done with high school. So Catie actually messaged me out of the blue. And I was like, I don't remember this person. Until I opened the message and like you can kind of like scroll up and see like different messages and stuff like that you saved with somebody. And she just messaged me out of the blue. And I was like, oh, I remember this person from way back in the day. And she had actually messaged me. She was going on a summer kind of trip with her friends. And she mentioned a state park near where I lived. And she was like, hey, isn't this kind of near you? And I was just kind of surprised to hear from her after so long. I was like, yeah, it's something close to me. But, she was just looking for information on best times to go and stuff like that. I gave her that information, and we exchanged a few messages, but that was kind of it. It didn't turn into like a long conversation or anything. We just it was kind of like hey, you live near here. You got any good ideas or like good details for me? And I just helped her out with what I could. However, in this time, I actually started going back to school and getting back into streaming. I actually started college and everything, or I had been through college a little bit. And, I had started streaming a little bit more and streaming Minecraft out of the ordinary on Twitch. And who pops up in the chat? None other than Catie. I saw her username pop up and I was like, is this who I think it is? And after just a couple of messages, I was like, yeah, this is exactly who I think it is. So we got to chatting in the stream, and we moved to Discord moved to Discord DMs after the Twitch stream, and we just kind of started talking from there on, kind of catching up with, DMing back and forth, catching up on what's happened over the last few years. And at first it was all kind of nostalgic. It was talking about the old friend group, the ridiculous drama that would happen, the late night survival games grinds. And then it kind of shifted. We kind of went from talking about like nostalgic things, like, what was going on in middle school, to catching up about the last 4 years of our lives, where we'd been, what we'd been up to, how much everything had changed. And it was weird because even though so much time had passed, talking to her in those DMs felt weirdly like natural. Like we just kind of picked up our conversations from back in 2016 where we left off, and there was there was some awkwardness, but not enough to be like tangible. And when we found out we were both in college and taking similar classes, we started doing homework together over Discord calls. And this was kind of one of those things where we would stay up until 4 or 5 in the morning and just kind of working on homework. And even through that screen and just being on Discord calls, you could feel kind of that energy between us, and you just, you get that feeling where you're like, okay, this person likes me, I like them. And so this was October-ish, and, we started talking, and by the time February rolled around in the next year, I ended up working up the courage to ask her out. Even though we would be 500 miles apart, with her being in college and me being at home, she said yes, and just like that, we started our long-term relationship. Now, what happened was, I had done a long-distance relationship before, Catie, and I was very fearful of going into another one. It was just something I wasn't comfortable with, and it was one of those things where, you have to have a lot of trust in somebody. However, dating her, was weird because I'd never met her in person, and it just kind of all felt surreal. But having that, there was that deep trust between us that just made everything feel closer than being 500 miles apart. So, we just kept doing what we were doing. It felt like I was dating my closest friend, which I basically was. So after we started dating in February, we finally made plans to meet in person that April. And I drove nearly 2.5 hours from my place to her town when she was up from a college spring break. And I was nervous. It all felt surreal. I didn't know what was going to happen. But that moment where we saw each other first, for the first time, all of that nervousness, kind of the fear of what was going to happen, all of that just melted away. We met for the first time in a random parking lot in the middle of her town, and the image of her running towards me, as I'm getting out of the car, was just, it was a core memory. You'll never forget that moment, and everything just kind of felt right. So, I had only planned to stay for the day, so we packed in as much as we could in that one day. You can do a lot in 24 hours, but when you're talking about just daylight time, you're looking at 12 hours. We got a lot of stuff done in 12 hours. So we went to breakfast at her favorite kind of local spot in her town. We ended up going bowling because she knew me as the bowling guy. And we had lunch at a restaurant that I recommended, which was absolutely delicious. And same with the breakfast. The breakfast that we had was amazing. And not to brag or anything, but I kind of kicked some butt in bowling. But anyways, We ended the day off with walking around a nearby state park, and it just kind of felt like that entire day flew by. And even though it was hard to leave, I had to head back home and return to the long distance. From that day on, though, we promised to keep making the effort, planning visits throughout the summer so we could keep building what we had started. That summer was filled with many adventures, everything feeling straight out of a movie. We crammed so many dates in during that summer, and I had realized that I would do anything to keep this person in my life. We kept communication up during our times apart, and enjoyed the memories we could make when we were together. Of course, the summer would end after what felt like the shortest 3 months ever, and we had to make a plan to make time to see each other, with Catie going to school over 7 hours away from where I lived. Visiting would end up being the most difficult task. However, I decided to try and use Amtrak to visit in October. And let's just say it went in typical Amtrak fashion, with me leaving my house to go to the train station at 11 a.m. and not getting to her college until 1:30 a.m. Now, I'm no mathematician, but 11 a.m. to 1:30 in the morning is a little bit more than the 7-hour drive. But the train was fun. So we ended up staying in our dorm room, and we made plans to do some hiking and go to the nearest zoo by. It was kind of like it's been our thing through our relationship to just kind of go to every zoo that we've seen. So if we go to a new city, we see if it's got a cool zoo, and if it does, we make time to go see it. After that weekend adventure, I decided that driving would be a better option going forward. While driving being the more difficult option, being that it was a 7-hour drive each way, the time spent together made the drive worth it. Leaving to go back home was always the worst part for me, always wanting to stay that extra day or even just a few extra hours before embarking on my drive home. However, we kept our adventures going for over the 3 years while she was in school. A lot had changed during that time. She moved out of the dorms into an apartment with her friend, and I upgraded to a new car to handle all the mileage that I was putting on it. And my old one, that car was great to me, but I was suffering in it. It was just not doing the mileage the way it used to. So I ended up getting a new car out of the deal. However, whenever Catie had breaks from college, she'd come out to visit me at my parents' house, and during the semesters, I'd drive down for the long weekends whenever I could. I'll always be grateful for the flexibility that I had on my job back then, and honestly, I couldn't stand that job, but being able to take the time off and make all those weekend trips made it all worth it. In April of 2023, just 2 years after we met in person, we decided to plan the trip of a lifetime. It was going to be a part celebration of our relationship, part graduation gift for Catie, who had just finished college at the time. The trip was a simple concept. Catie had always dreamed of visiting as many national parks as possible in her lifetime, and I had shared the same ambition to go to national parks and had the same kind of dreams of seeing as many in my lifetime. So it was obvious we had to do something big. I had previously done a large trip similar to this, going to 5 national parks in just under a week, so I kind of knew what was possible. So, me being the planner that I am, I set out to turn that dream into a reality. And after nearly a year of mapping it all out, from April of 2023 till May of 2024, we created this wild plan of doing 17 national parks in 40 days. And shortly after her graduation, we hit the road and made that trip happen. It was an unforgettable adventure, but I'll save that story for another video if people are interested in hearing all about that journey. However, coming back from that trip, we knew one thing for sure. We needed to close the long distance, so we set a goal: move in together by the end of the year. We both had our own things to take care of before that could happen, and on my end, things got a little more complicated than expected. So, we didn't end up hitting that original timeline, but just 2 months into the new year, everything finally fell into place. I landed a job that I genuinely love, and we found an apartment that felt perfect for us. We are able to bring the animals, so she brought her dog and cat, who I love that cat to death. He is probably my favorite animal ever. And a dog that she kind of rescued from work, and now they live happily in our apartment. So now, as I'm making this video today, it's been 2 months into living together, and I can honestly say I have zero complaints. Life has only gone uphill since being with Catie, and I never thought I'd be in this position. So she brings out the best in me in ways that I never knew I needed. Which, this all sounds a little sappy, but it's the complete truth. I wouldn't be where I am today unless I was with Catie. I mean, they always say there's like different paths you can take in life, and I'm glad that I got this path. So yeah, I can, thank my relationship being from Minecraft, which is crazy considering the Minecraft movie came out just like 2 weeks ago. And now I can talk about this story that is only possible because of the game that the movie's based on. So yeah, sometimes the blocks you placed as a kid come back to build something very, very real. So shout out to Mojang for accidentally playing matchmaker in this situation. I appreciate the game that you guys have made. And if you guys want to hear more stories like this from my life, I want you guys to let me know in the comments below, because there's plenty more that I have, especially that trip one. So if you guys want to hear more about that 40-day trip of visiting 17 national parks and crossing like 10,000 miles in 40 days, I would be more than happy to talk about it. And if you guys want to see more from this series, make sure you guys leave a like, comment, and subscribe. But until then, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.